Hey, podcasters. We are here, the ladies of Read, Watch, and Wine. And I'm Raya.
I'm Treva.
And I'm Lynn.
And we are here to bring to you our book to movie adaptation of Killers of the Flower Moon.
It is the story about the Osage and the beginning of the FBI. I don't know why I was buffering thinking that. It was released in 2017 and then adapted into a movie 2023.
Yeah, 2023.
The book was written by David Grann, I should say. Yes, that's it. Okay, so before we get started, today we are talking about Eureka. It is a California white wine. Isn't it cute? It has a bear that's like, oh my God, chasing a butterfly. I love it. But it's a 50% Chardonnay, 50% Moscato, and then the other 40, I really can't read, but it says something good and it looks pretty and kind of like orangey, so I'm going to try it.
Thank you, Lynn.
It's so cute. It's kind of cartoonish.
Exactly. That's why it's like, oh, my best friend had it in her little wine collection and told me I could have a glass of wine or two. So I was like, I'm going to drink this.
You were like, Eureka! Okay, so let's talk about this book. I don't know about you all, but I did not know anything about the story of the Osage Indians. I didn't know. I knew nothing about any of this. I had to pause so often because I was crying while reading this book. I was having anxiety. I woke up in the morning having dreams about these families and these plots to kill these families. It was so horrific for me. And I don't know if it's because it was all new. I knew the horrific things that happened to Native Americans, but I just was not familiar with the story. So it was a very, very hard read for me.
I completely piggyback off of what you're saying. I completely agree. I'm not big into history, but I do like to learn. And I know that you love to learn also. I mean, we all do in this group. That's why we even started this podcast. But I had never heard such in-depth detail about the genocide and the plotting to kill and wipe out like a whole group of people. And so as I was reading it, I can't tell you, I wish I actually propped up a camera on my face as I was reading it, because there were so many times that my jaw like just literally dropped into my lap. And I was just like, what is wrong? Why would you do that to these people? And every page just kept getting worse, more sad. And the detail was awesome because I could visualize like what was happening to like this group of people, but just to learn about it and it to be 2024 and I'm just now learning about it. It's like,
oh, it's terrible that we didn't learn about it in school.
I was so sad. I was like heartbroken. It was heart-wrenching. I mean, I was worth a read because I love the information that was provided. Yeah. I had no idea how the FBI even got started. So just to even hear that portion, but to learn about the wealth that this group had, and then for people to literally strip that away from them through envy and killing them one by one was just, I could not wrap my mind around it.
Yeah, it's just a sad America. And to be honest with you, it takes me back to people in our country that don't really know about slavery. Now I'm like, how did we not know? Because if they take everything else, if they take it all out of your schools, right? Because that's where you learn it, and your family didn't go through it, there's nobody telling that history. Right. And, it's sad because we're just finding out about this. If things in our country continue the way they're continuing, it'll be the same story 30 years from now for people when it comes to slavery or anything. I mean, it's just scary.
It is very scary. And I'm with you, Ray. I was embarrassed that I didn't know anything about this. And to think that this is just one tribe.
One out of.
And what I know for sure, haven't read about it, but what I feel like I'm very confident in saying for sure is that this is one of hundreds, thousands that received the same treatment because it was done so strategically. Just the way that they kept their money. They were savages, so they couldn't manage their own money. that is how this population of people were treated throughout this entire country. So this is just one.
They're still being treated that way. And I have several friends that are Native, and they have families that are literally pushed onto this certain lands, and they suffer from things like extreme alcoholism because their families are being wiped away. Their families are being taken away from them. They're literally given nothing. And they're like, oh, well, they don't really need this land. They don't really need that. They have no sense of their culture because of their inherited, trauma. It's horrible.
So consistent across America.
Yes.
With all different races. It's sad. It's just so many different things. Same thing for me. I was
population.
Oh well, yeah.
Reigns the terror.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this to be racist in any way, but there's one population in this country that reigns the terror on all of these other groups of people.
Yeah. And it's not everybody. I mean, they had plenty of people trying to help them, save them. There were some good people in it. Mm-hmm. There were some people that went in for one reason and then realized, wait a minute, I actually love this person and I don't want to take it away. You know what I mean? So it's just so heartbreaking.
It is.
So heartbreaking.
The main character, I forget her name, but
Sherry. I call Molly Sherry because she looks like my very good friend Sherry.
Oh, she does look like Sherry. Yeah, you're right. But I look at her, reading her story and watching one by one as she sits and watches every one of her
siblings, her family
get murdered.
And then herself. I mean, you think about it.
She was on her way.
She was on her way.
Yeah. So it was a sad read. I mean, if you have not read this story, I would encourage you to read it. It is a big, pretty thick book. It's a lot of reading, but if you have Audible, I would encourage you to listen to it on Audible. But it's just a story that has to be told.
Yeah.
It absolutely has to be told. I now tell everybody to read that book, and I tell them, bear with me because it's a lot. It's a lot of background, a lot of history, but it's history we have to know. We cannot walk around blinded.
Yep.
We're ignorant of these stories.
Yeah. So
to the movie, what did you guys think of the adaptation?
I thought the adaptation was really, really good. A lot of the things I watched, is really how I pictured in my head when I was reading the book. I mean, it wasn't as graphic as it could have been, which I'm kind of glad because I expected it to be a lot more graphic than it was. So I was kind of happy about that. Mm-hmm. But I thought the movie was good.
Well,
there was a few changes. Go ahead.
Opinion.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I don't know that I cared for the movie, and I don't know why. Well, I do know why. I didn't like it. I mean, I know you said it could have been more graphic, but more graphic would have been too much for you. But I felt like the movie did not quite capture how horrific this was. Like I left.
It didn't hurt you as much as the book did.
Yeah, I mean, the book hurt me so bad. I was crying. I didn't have a lot of emotion in the movie. I mean, I felt it, but it just wasn't so deep. And it didn't go into enough detail, all of the different situations. And the fact that, this wasn't an isolated situation. In the movie, it seems like it was a little bit more isolated. In the book, you realize that this was larger. Like this was on such a huge level,
a national level, hence it became, federal.
Yeah. And I don't feel like that was quite captured in the book. And so, in the movie, and I feel like people who watch the movie and don't read the book, they're not feeling like how horrific.
That's true.
It was.
That's true.
And so that was my biggest disappointment. I mean, of course, it was full of all these fabulous actors. Everybody did a phenomenal job as far as the actors go. But it just felt so short for me. I felt disappointed.
I kind of felt, I loved the adaptation. I'm not going to throw that kind of shade, but I loved the adaptation. I loved how it had these suspenseful moments that happened in the book also, to where you were kind of just plateau. You didn't know how to feel because everything was just so much. But I did feel a little underwhelmed with the adaptation only because the book was such a slap in the face with every page that in the movie you were kind of just not just watching it, but you're it was made nicer because it's a
tame. It was tamed.
Yeah, it was kind of whitewashed is what I kind of was feeling like, it was like, well, people aren't going to want to see the graphic. People aren't going to want to hear about how, they were just finding bodies everywhere in the middle of the town. And like, just, I wish they had put as much effort as David Grann did into the movie. Is it enough? No, but at the same time, it would have been like blacklisted if you'd gone any further. So I think
it should have been more Roots-ish. You know what I mean? You think about
multiple series.
Roots wasn't a true story, but you got what went on because it was so graphic. You know what I mean? And I think, I don't know that I would have been able to. I wouldn't have been able to sit through, a sitting of it. It would have took me a little while, but I just think you're right. It was a little bit rushed. Yes. I think it was just rushed through all of those episodes so that they could show it happen and then keep it going and show it happen and keep it going.
Yeah. A little narration may have even helped. A little narration may have even helped to move the line along, but also put a little bit more context into each situation. That may have helped at least bring the story around to me or add these tidbits that really showed a light on how big it was, like how far this reached as far as the corruption. Deep. It was so heart-wrenching. And there's a scene from the movie that I was so angry. And I don't know if you guys remember, but it was at the funeral home where the guy was charging Leonardo DiCaprio's character more money for the casket. And he made the comment, "Oh, you selling me these native prices or something like that. You trying to sell it to me for these prices." And that man said, "Some of us work hard for our money. We just don't sit back and collect riches like those natives do." And that line just made me think of this whole thing that happens today when people are like, "Oh, I'll pull myself up on my bootstraps," and all of that, as if everybody doesn't work hard. And
when you think about it, the native tax or fees, I mean, look at the pink tax that happens with like pink products for women. Like that is, I'm not saying it's the same, but it's along the same lines.
Yeah.
You got to pay more because we're women. Like it's ridiculous. Yeah. So I agree.
Yeah. It just I was so angry. And that actor, he was fabulous because I hated him with a passion when he said that. I was like, no, just say that, But anyway, so there were some moments like that I felt that emotion, but it wasn't necessarily about, the whole story, which is what I would have loved to see more about. And I guess for me, I came from the standpoint is that not everybody's going to read that book. And I want people to see that movie to really understand how horrific this was and what actually happened.
It really makes me though want to go and visit like
Osage County,
or just I want to go to a museum or something. Donation. I mean, I felt so bad.
I know.
I mean, and we were destroyed too, but it's just so sad.
And I mean, honestly, like it's slavery, the conversation is whitewashed. We all know it is. Mm-hmm. But then also when it comes to the genocide of the Native Americans, like that's not even talked about, let alone whitewashed. So it's like, I'm happy that this movie came out because it gives insight to the realism that, not just Black people, not just Native Americans go through. Like it gives the actual touching of within a tangible distance into reality for these marginalized groups. And it's just like, it's disgusting, honestly, but it is the American history.
Yeah, it really is. And I just needed to be told.
And told again and again to be not forgotten. One of the things that when I went to Germany, I was there for 3 months, and I learned that in Germany, every year in like from kindergarten all the way up to whatever year 12, the ramifications of the Holocaust are talked about and taught every year.
Yeah.
And it's taught in a way to be like, this is history that we will not repeat. Yeah. This is what was how our people were literally slaughtered and destroyed economy wise too. This is a history that we will not forget and not repeat. Us in America, it's like, well, we don't really want to talk about it. Right. So God forbid, like I could see in America, like,
repeating.
Yeah. I mean, look at all like the women's rights that were all like Roe versus Wade being overturned, and like we're headed towards that same, I guess history. should say.
Yeah, I mean, I wish we could follow German's lead in how they are handling that horrific, the Holocaust that happened, because even down to the statues, like in Germany, you're not going to see the soldiers that participated. Now, you don't see their statues scattered around the country like you do us with all these generals.
Yeah, they're not named schools after it either.
Exactly. But what they do have is they have these rocks placed all over Germany that are remembering the person that lived in that house that died. And they're remembering the people, the victims.
Yes.
And you got to appreciate that. And you got to appreciate the fact that they're not ever going to let that country forget what happened and what happened to.
No, I mean, these are great grandchildren of people that were alive then and that were, that were murdered, and they know their history. These 5-year-olds know the history and they know not to repeat the history. Yeah. But here it's not taught. It's not talked about. It's hushed, and it's like, that's how things happen.
People even try to shame us. Oh, we're talking about this again.
You know, the black card.
So, but yeah, I don't know if you wanted to talk about the cats. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to talk about for this movie? It did spark a lot of emotions on all that.
Yeah, it did.
I have nothing to say really about like the casting. It's not a yay or nay for me, only because I couldn't really focus on the cast. Yeah, I was just so focused on the storyline and how it made me feel that it literally could have been, I don't have to say anybody, but it nothing sparked out of my mind. The white people looked white. The Native Indians looked Native. I'm not going to say whether they were or not, but like I get for white America what they were going with it. So I don't really have anything like good or bad to say. I just was really hoping that all the cast members played their role, played their part so that we could feel how he felt in the book. I am happy with the cast is what I'm trying to say.
So, and honestly, I feel the same way. I was focused on the storyline, but because of the phenomenal group of actors that they had in this film, it really allowed you to do that because they did a Rhea. They were their characters. They became part of that film. They embraced and embodied everything about the role that they were playing, because I could not have played the Robert De Niro role.
It's interesting. It's interesting you say that, Treva, because when Lynn was talking, I was just like, I really didn't focus too much on them. But that to me tells me that they were great, because when somebody's in a movie and I'm like, why the heck did they that don't even look like it was perfect for me, because I never thought that. I mean, I thought everyone was exactly who they were. Yeah. It was just really good.
Well, then like with Martin Scorsese coming in at the end as like the radio show, like guy, he's not normally in front of the camera. Right. So when I saw his face, I was like, oh, like he really came in front of the camera to make sure that like his name is on it. Like his name is on it, his face is on it. Yeah. And that gave me a little bit more hope to be like, this is going to be like watched and heard and received. I mean, I know it's a name drop, but hey, if it gets people to see the movie and learn this information, Martin, come around that camera more often.
Yeah,
exactly. And so I'll just say one more thing. You had talked about the Native Americans. I remember reading an article on how they actually went to a Native American community. And so some of them weren't actual actors, but they really wanted to be authentic and making sure that they used people who were Native American people to play in the majority of those roles. So I appreciated that, because they didn't have somebody dressing up and faking like they were Native American. And they really went to some of the reservations and got people, Native Americans to
they did their due diligence. And that's, I mean, I don't mean to cut you off, but that's honestly like what we say over and over again with all these like reviews, is at least do your due diligence to try to fit along into the narrative that like makes it real.
Right.
I think too, if they hadn't have done that, it would have just been one more slap in the face.
Oh, exactly. Totally.
You know what I mean? We can just replace you with whoever.
Because you have the same skin tone, or we're just flat ironing your hair or some kind of BS.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go.
I thought that was extremely respectful.
Yeah.
To do that. All right. Well, you guys are ready to rate this adaptation?
Yeah. You already said I loved it. So it gets a full glass for me. that
For
I have
me,
here.
it gets a full glass. I was torn between a long day's work or a full glass just because I was underwhelmed. But I think that they were pushing to do what they could do without like it being like blacklisted because it was just too much. Americans are sensitive and they don't want to ever hear anything negative. So I think they stood along the lines they could have to make it good. So full glass from Lynn.
Okay, well, it's getting a long day of work for me, and I was struggling between half glass and long day of work because I needed more. I needed so much more, but I love the actors. And I'll just say that even though I'm not giving it a full glass, I really, really would love for everyone to go out and watch this movie, especially if you're not a reader and you're not going to read the book, because you got to share the story with your family and your friends and your kids, and people have to make sure that this history doesn't get buried.
Yeah, it needs
Agreed.
to be a high school read.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today, Pillars of the Flower Moon. And make sure you tune in because we've got lots of books that we're going to be reviewing this year. And we're really looking to do some things to change up our platform and have a further reach out to our community. A lot of people have been reaching out saying they're waiting for episodes. So here we go. And we hope you guys continue to tune in.
Yeah,
Like, subscribe, follow us, Jinx. You owe me a Coke. But yeah, like, subscribe, follow us, give us some feedback. Let us know what you think, what you like, you don't like. I mean, if you don't like something, you got to listen, but we will take your feedback.
All right. Bye.
Bye.